Welcome, everyone, to Soul Flow Radio, episode 11 with the Feel-Osophy brothers. My name is Josh, and I'm one of your co-hosts for today's program. And we are also joined by Vijay, who is our other co-host, the other Feel-Osophy brother. Vijay, do you want to kick it off and introduce yourself to the folks?
Hey, brother. Episode 11, man. I can't believe we've got 10 under our belt. Yes, everybody. Joshua and I are so happy and feeling so blessed doing this and doing this in a slightly different way. And let's get into it.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, my first question today, I've just been doing a lot of observing, right? And even thinking about myself and how I've shown up, especially in like romantic relationships, right? Partnerships of that nature. And, something that I see that we really tend to struggle with, all of us, is helping the person that we're in partnership with to sort of, kind of step more into their, say, masculine or feminine energy. So where I'm coming from this, for example, is, I think a lot of men, they make the proclamation that, oh, I'm with a strong woman and, I don't know how to be a man for her and all of these kind of things, right? And I think we often miss the whole point that, this is kind of what she's probably been surrounded by in her life, be that from the masculine energy in her life where she didn't feel she could be protected and safe and have someone look out for her and all of those kind of things, like when we think about the masculine energy that we are typically counted on for. Right. She wasn't able to necessarily connect with that and receive that. So ultimately, she had to become a very self sustaining organism that provides not only the masculine, but the feminine supports for herself. Right. Then when we get into relationships, some of us might feel that there's a bit of resistance to, really embodying, say, more of that masculine or feminine energy because they've been stuck in this place for so long. It's kind of like a survival tactic, if you will. Right. So my question to you is, how do we show up better, or how can we do this more effectively so that we help our partners to feel safe to move into, in our case, say, their feminine energy and live more from that space versus more in the masculine?
Hmm. Great question, as always. I think the simple and short answer is to lead. And I can elaborate on that. This is a very hot topic these days because of the nature of gender roles, the discussions, the global discussions of what gender roles are, and how the various like different trains of thought, whether political or ideologies, conflict on it all. And so I am reminded of a recent viral podcast or something by this guy called Charlie Kirk, who was basically saying that he cannot fathom the idea that when a man and a woman go on a date, that the man doesn't flip the bill,
Mm.
and like this whole concept of sharing and going half half. He's like, I don't get it. I think that no matter what, if you have to wash dishes for it, the man should pay,
Mm.
even if it's a first date. Now, that by many might be considered very traditional and sort of almost the going against the feminist movement. And so this is the discussion at hand. So I feel like um, just backing up a little bit, I feel like even as a kid, even growing up, I found it very ironic and interesting and thought provoking that the feminist movement, which I believe is so important and so necessary because of the ancestral bullshit that's gone on for so many generations, to bring back some sense of equality. I think, having said that, I've always found it interesting that the narrative generally is that the woman has to embody the masculine traits in order to prove or show that they are equal, which I
Mm.
always found confusing. It's almost like the first step is to understand, the first step is that the woman needs to agree that the man is higher and that we have to now wear the power suits to rise up to where the man is, which I found even as a kid very confusing. It's like, why is there an inherent hierarchy? Why is there a narrative where the woman has to be the wearing a power suit, just literally the same
Yeah.
clothes that a man wears in order to be considered equal, right? So
Right.
I found it confusing that there isn't a narrative where it's like women are actually encouraged to embody the feminine more in order to show that that also is such a strong place in its own way.
Right.
So I feel like coming back to the Charlie Kirk and fronting the bill and the example of the idea of leadership, I think it the way we men can show up and to create a space where our uh, calling it a heterosexual in a heterosexual relationship where the woman can be invited and feel safe to embrace her feminine is to take leadership, as to be like, no, I got this. I
Mhm.
will carry the bags. I will open the door. I will be chivalrous. I will front the bill. Not as a way to say that they can't,
Mhm.
but from a place of I want to. I
Right.
want to be the strong pillar that you can lean on, and so that you may um, blossom into the very strong human that you are, whatever form that is. And so I will take leadership. Now, if you as my partner have objections to that, then of course I'm here to listen to you and respect and honor that.
Mhm.
But I'll take the lead on those things as opposed to being invited to do so, or as opposed to the man feeling too scared to do so. Uh, that's kind of what I would start with. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on
Yeah, I think like this really ties in to me as I see it, right? Like it has really been a driving force behind me doing my self-mastery consulting, right? Because the truth is, a lot of us as men, we pride ourselves, we believe we have this innate calling to lead, right? No matter what space we're in, whether it's a boardroom, bedroom, living room, whatever, right? We have this calling within us. But what I find is that we're often not well equipped to actually lead effectively, right? So, our idea of how do I lead my family, for example, might differ, and from what I've observed, often does differ from what our partners imagine leadership looks like, right? Oftentimes it'll be like, well, I did all my responsibilities. You didn't have to ask me about anything. I made the money. Like I took care of us. What do you mean? Like that's leadership. That's not leadership, right? That's doing your part in the partnership based on whatever agreements you guys have made. But that doesn't just give you this title of leader and say that you've checked the box of leading. We have to
it?
understand what is it that our partner needs. And a lot of the time I find when they're communicating things to us, it's stepping back and understanding that nothing is personal, right? A lot of these things are things that they're saying that give us clues as to what it is they might be struggling with, right? So we can't just assume that as the man, you need to trust me as a leader. It's like, what have I done as a man to prove to you that you can trust me, right? Have I followed through on my word when I give it to you, no matter how big or small the deliverable is, right?
Mm,
Am I a person of integrity, right? Do I show up for myself in a way that's respectable, which gives you the confidence that I would show up the same or better for you? Right?
mm,
I find we often don't examine these things within ourselves. We kind of just expect because I have this family or this amount of money or this degree or this title at work, I'm a leader. No, you're not, right?
mm,
That's a fallacy. And often that serves as I find it just trips us up because it glosses over the desire or the need for us to actually be introspective, to actually check in
mm,
with our relationship and be like, hey, babe, I was thinking that this is how I bring some strong energy to this relationship. I'm just
mm,
trying to, I just want to check in with you. Like, how am I delivering on this? Right. Because that invites conversation. All of a sudden, now it's the person who we are intending to do these things for, whether it's lead or this or that. They're giving us the feedback versus us just self critiquing. Right. Because
mhm,
oftentimes we're a little bit generous when it comes to our own performance. Right. So now we give the opportunity for feedback to come in, right? Now, when that feedback is not invited in, we often take that as criticism, right?
mhm,
As, oh, my partner's talking down to me. They don't have faith in me, this and that, all these kind of things, right? So that's why I think we need to be very intentional with check-ins in our relationship about this and other things. But I think that
mhm,
this is especially important because we do a lot of living and performing actions that we feel are contributing to this sense of confidence that you should have in me as my ability to lead in this segment of our relationship or whatever, right? So we're not necessarily thinking about how did I do on that last bit? How,
mm,
what translated versus what it is that I imagine was translated, right?
Mm.
It's really just checking in with ourselves, and that's what I find is going to make a huge difference. Something we've spoken about on previous episodes too is our ideas about what it is our partners are imagining or wanting us to bring to the table in the relationship, right? Connecting with that is what's going to help us to actually understand what's important in this ecosystem that we're nurturing and trying to create other things within. Right. So, what am I striving for? Are my actions actually aligned? Do I have some work that I need to do? Do I need to apologize for some things? Do I need to forgive myself for some things? That's kind of my thoughts around how we can really get into more of a constructive space of talking about how can we do this differently and more effectively for everyone involved moving forward.
Mm. Yeah, I love it, brother. What comes up for me is it's a good opportunity to zero in on the word lead and leading and what that actually means, right?
Yeah.
And so, just to be clear, when I say lead, I don't necessarily mean a hierarchy by any means. There can be two leaders in a two-person team.
Yeah.
There can be 10 leaders in a 10-person team. Each person leads in their own way, uh, for whatever role that they are designed to play in that equation, that in that duo, in that team, whether it's a
Yeah.
soccer team or a marriage, right? The goalie is a leader. The defense is a leader. They're all leading in their own departments. And so when I say lead, you give an example of, for example, let's am I showing up in the way you need, asking that question. The act of being the first or initiating that conversation is leading. Um, the idea of am I showing up and honoring and do the things that I say that I will do, to do them is to lead in from my perspective. So there is a
Yeah.
lot of leading going on at all times. Are you a leader of your own character? It's like, so just it is it's important to mention that uh, in a duo, both need to lead. And so the leading is an important thing. To wake up in the morning and exercise and be in good mind and body is leadership. That might be the example you're trying to set for yourself and for the dynamic and the health elements of your relationship. If I've been in situations and relationships where neither of us are getting up in the morning and exercising, and before we know it, it's 5 o'clock and we're couch potatoes all day,
Yeah.
right? So one of the two getting up and going for a walk, regardless of what the other needs or not, needs it or not, the one person getting up and going for a walk and skipping rope is taking some form of leadership, right? Including initiating those conversations. So I think it's really important. And as far as the narratives of how a masculine should lead and how a feminine should lead, and how the goalie should lead, and how the, whatever person on the team should lead, I always say the best way to learn from life is to do life. So
Mm.
just
Yeah.
start and just, let's say, open the door and pay for the meals, and let that act be the catalyst for a necessary conversation.
Mm.
Hey, I notice you always open the door for me. I don't need that. Why do you do it? I notice you do it. It makes me feel less. Or, I love that you open the door for me. It's great. It really makes me feel like I can step into my feminine or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So act as opposed to being in an analysis paralysis, continuously conversing. Am I meeting this need? Am I meeting that need? Tell me more about what your needs are. Because a lot of times we don't even intellectually know what our needs are until the experience is in our lap and in our system. It's like, I
Yeah.
thought I needed this, but actually it feels weird.
Mm.
So I feel it's important to sort of take a little bit of ownership in honoring who and what you are as an individual, and start showing up for yourself and start leading in that way. Uh, I have my narratives on what I feel I should be as a masculine role in my relationship. So
Mhm.
I'm going to start practicing those things from a place of integrity and love. And if any of that is rubbing my partner the wrong way, it's our responsibility as a duo to create a safe space where that person can voice
Yes.
And I don't, as you said, I don't take it personally. I go, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I can adjust or whatever, you know. So I wanted to definitely mention that.
No, those are great points, man. And I think that's a great way for us to open up this type of conversation and invite more of the folks who tune in to do the same. You know, I think that there's
Yeah.
just so much data available to us in the things that our partners communicate, the way they communicate it, right? If we can really just step back and be like, well, if we're saying that life, everything that happens in life is just a reflection of us and what's happening within us, let's step back. Let's remove the taking it personally bit out of it, right? And let's just see, what is this trying to empower me to support this person with, right?
Exactly.
You know, so
And if I may say, the one really important ingredient necessary for taking our taking it personally piece out of it is self-love. It's like if I have enough self-love and self-confidence, then I'm more better equipped to not take it personally because I
yeah,
know my integrity, my core, my beliefs. I know that the thing that I did that potentially triggered my partner isn't coming from a bad place or a place of trauma, and that I am strong and humble enough, well, to be humble and be like, okay, I need to change this, I need to look at this.
right.
And so coming back to, so take leadership, work out, meditate, whatever it is, eat better, take care of your mind and body as an individual so that you can have that self-love and that self-confidence, so that you can show up not taking things personally and allow a space for the feminine to rise, the masculine to rise, the partnership to rise.
Love that, man. Thank you. You know, I feel really complete in that one. So, you know, if you want to kick it over and you know, launch your question out into the universe here.
Yeah, I mean, do we we've got 9 minutes left. I don't know if we want to try that. Do we want to
Yeah,
do we
let's
want
go
to
for it. Don't
okay.
let's not shoot for a hard 30. You know, we'll just
Oh,
one question and see where it takes us. Yeah.
okay. Okay. Um sorry, sorry, we can talk about this on this show. I thought it was like we're going to do one question per episode, but that's okay. Okay, so my question really is, I guess let's tie it into this subject because I have two. Um is this I brought it up earlier, this analysis paralysis place, right? And I want to know, I want to ask you, at what point is preparing to do something getting in the way of actually doing it? You know, like, like I'm going to prepare so I can start acting. Preparation is important, practice is important, research and studying is important, learning, equipping yourself is important. Very. But at what point does it reach a saturation point and you're just like preparing for the sake of, really you're just what's the word? Uh, Procrastinating. Now you're just procrastinating, right? So question for you is, how do you tap into yourself and be like, okay, I'm procrastinating. Now I'm actually just like making excuses to not start the thing.
It's so interesting you asked this question because this podcast is the perfect thing for me to reference in response to what you're asking.
Okay,
So,
great.
you know, if you happen to be new to our podcast, what we decided when we first connected, we just had this spark and we both wanted to do a podcast. And, you know, we just said, let's flow with it, right? We had no name. We had no idea what the format's going to be, what day it's coming out, none of it, right? It's just like, I know I want to do this, right? And you want to do this.
We love
That's what
talking
we
with each other. That's what we knew.
right? And so it's like, okay, we don't know how exactly this is going to take shape, but we know it will. And we know it's just a matter of time. So, you know, in being mindful of my past habits, and I shared this with you, you know, I had been invited to actually be part of podcasts from before, like years ago. And, you know, we did the whole thing. It's like that upfront investment in equipment. You know, let me do that online research. Let me check all the Amazon reviews, all this stuff. Yes, the best mic, right? I got the best mic. It's going to make for the best podcast, right? So I have the mic. And not once did I use that mic. Okay. Like it was the worst thing because like when I saw the mic, I think it was Boxing Day on Amazon. I'm like, all right, you know what? It's lower price right now. I'm gonna make this investment, and that way it's holding me accountable. I have this box. I have it in front of me, no excuses. I get the box, I don't even open the box like for so long. And like I just hear my wife's voice in my head, right? Like I feel like she's looking at the box, then she's looking at me, and she's looking at the box, and she's looking at me. And it's like, what's this guy gonna do, right? So, you know, I had to acknowledge in that moment that sometimes what I do is I do all the prep stuff. Like I get all the stuff that's optically going to look good and the best equipment and this and that. I do the research, but I never pull the trigger and actually follow through. And that was a really hard thing for me to confront because I've excelled in so many spaces, but I still have different vulnerabilities that at certain points, for whatever reason, I think a lot of it tied to some self-esteem stuff around like, would anyone want what I'm trying to create and
Mm,
release into the world?
mm,
I really allowed that to be in my head. And so with these previous podcasts that I did, we recorded like 6 episodes in a day. We rented a studio downtown Toronto, talking with this producer, that producer, all this kind of stuff. Nothing ever happens with it, right? Money went down the drain, time went down the drain, excitement. You have excitement and all this kind of stuff building, but in working with someone else as well, right? You open yourself up. So to me, I just had to step back from that experience and be like, okay, what did I do here and how do I change? What do I need to do differently next time if I want a different outcome? So with Soulflow, when we had this idea to do this, I resisted purchasing anything. I said, I'm not buying a mic. I'm not buying a new this or that. I'm not springing for an expensive platform, nothing. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to use the free resources right now as proof to myself that I will follow through, right? I've done the research. I've written out my questions of what I need to know. What confidence do I need to have before I start this thing? And I make sure I get responses through my research to all those questions. Because then it's like, well, no, Josh, like you put all your questions, you have all your responses. There's zero reason to procrastinate at this point, right? So that's what I can say. Sometimes it's like you said, you just need to start sometimes, right? I gave this advice to someone who's actually asking for advice on podcasts and starting their own. I said, bro, just start. Do your research, be aware of what you want to purchase if you want, but don't let that be your starting point because that's going to trip you up. Prove to yourself you're going to show up no matter what. If all you have is your phone, like we're recording just on a phone. There's no mic, there's no extra anything. It's just follow through. And that is part of self-leadership. That's part of showing up with good king energy. That's saying I'm going to do something and I'm going to figure it out. Right? It's very much, for those who connect with tarot, for example, it's very much Queen of Wands energy, where you need to learn as you go. You're not going to have all the answers before you start out on your quest. None of them, right?
mm,
And that's part of the journey. That's part of the universe in its own way testing you. Do you have faith in what you're doing? Because you're not going
mm.
to arrive at that fully polished state from the jump. And if you did, how exciting would that be?
Or ever.
Right. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I would share in response to your question, man. How does that land for you?
yeah. Really well. Would you even say that? Yeah, that lands really well. I so resonate, and I guess I'll say this. I would even say that if you feel like the amount of preparing people do is already too much, I think. Okay,
Yeah.
like if you feel like, oh, I've prepared enough, you probably prepared too much. Okay, it's
Right.
like that's kind of want to, like, I almost want to say yes, do a little bit of preparing, but just actually start,
Yeah.
because you might want to take this course and take that course, and you watch UFC, and then all of a sudden you're getting an MMA membership, like at a club,
Yeah.
you know what? Just go for a walk. Like instead of getting that membership and saying, now I'm gonna like really go and do my jujitsu and whatever, or start rock climbing because I watched this documentary, just start. Just go to the rock climbing gym and just start. Just don't worry about any of the bells and whistles to make yourself feel like you're equipped and ready, because you never know, like as and when you start, the experience itself will tell you, actually you need to learn this, and
Yeah.
all that other stuff that you learned is totally useless, and you wasted $5,000 on that course in 6 months of your life. You're
Yeah.
not even using it, right? And so I'm a big believer in just start. Now, disclaimer: don't start uh, giving chiropractic adjustments to people without a proper degree or a certification in that. So I hope our audience is smart enough to understand what I'm trying to say. Don't start being a dentist without learning how to be a dentist. I'm not saying that, but let's say you get your dentist degree or whatever it is. Just start, open it. Now you're ready. Now you've got the thing. So especially in our community, our, let's call it, spiritual healing transforming community,
Yeah.
things are not very tangible. Things are very sort of like esoteric. In
Mm.
this space, I think, coming from a place of humility and full disclaimer, like, I am just starting out and I'm trying to learn, and this is what I'm trying to do. Just start, because through that experience is what the universe will actually tell you what you exactly need. And what I loved about what you said is that starting is you telling the universe that you are actually ready, and it is king energy to actually get it going. Just do it. Just do it. And if you're finding yourself paralyzed and not doing it, really go inwards and see, what is it? What
Yeah.
is it that keeps telling me I need the 300-hour course. Now I need the whatever, the
Yeah.
next thing to start. What is it that is telling me that? Why am I not starting? And 9 out of 10 times you said this, it's the fear of failure,
Yeah.
is the imposter syndrome, and a teacher once told me, I had a conversation with him about imposter syndrome. Um, and I know I don't feel ready to run retreats and stuff like that. He goes, you know what? Start from
Mm.
a place of humility and integrity. And he says, I've been doing this for 25 years. I have imposter syndrome before anything I start. But if you start now, in a year, you'll have a year's experience. In a year and a
Yeah.
half, year and a half, 2 years, 2 years. And all of a sudden, time will fly and you'll be 6 years into it. And all of a sudden, that imposter syndrome thing will reduce a little bit because you have this backlog of walking the talk.
Awesome. And something that can give us so much confidence and like take that pressure that we're in all likelihood just putting on ourselves on us is like, let's just literally pick one example from out in our lived experience of what we're looking at. And let's identify one person who's done it perfectly. You won't be able to find one, right? And BJ, I don't know if you do this, but this is a valuable tool, and I think our listeners, among other things that we shared in this episode, can try to tap into. Is like when I have that sense of imposter syndrome or that procrastination, I check in with myself and I think about what thoughts are like. You think about what you're thinking about, right? So I think about what thoughts are playing in my head, what insecurities keep coming up, and then I take it one step further and I ask myself, whose voice am I hearing that in? Right? Because it might not be mine. It might be someone else's insecurity completely, right? Much like we spoke about a bit earlier, right? It's like, it's sometimes it's just information that's coming our way to inform us about that individual versus we are not equipped, we are less than, we're insufficient, right? So tapping into that has really helped me to reclaim my power, take my power back in those moments where I'm feeling like stuck or like, will I follow through or what's happening? What's actually happening within me that's got me at this standstill in this moment?
Love that. To answer your question, no, I haven't done that. In that, whose voice is it? That's very interesting. I'm gonna try that for sure. Like, whose voice is it? Is it my voice? Is it in what accent is it in?
Yeah.
Is it my dad? So am I really seeking his approval? Is that what's happening? All that stuff. I love that. I'll pay attention. What I do actually is I take it further in this way. I was like, okay, so if I do, let's call it, start this podcast, and three people show up and one of them says this sucks, then what?
Mhm.
Like, what does it do? So my biggest fear is nobody will listen or whatever it is, and they'll tell me I suck. Then what? How will that feel? Am I gonna break as a person? Am I gonna, stop doing the podcast or whatever it is, and really sit with that? And 9 out of 10 times, or 10 out of 10 times, it's like, it's not that big a deal. That fear, if you actually draw the line to that end point, it's really not that huge a thing. And so that also really helps me. And to be very honest with you, like, I'm just trying to not even get to that point and just start. Just be like, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to embody that to the best of my ability. There are no fails in life. It's all lessons. It's one of the Yoga Sutras. It's on, I've tattooed it on myself. It's like, it's every quote unquote illusion of a fail is it's just a story. It's just a societal word that we use, but actually it's just a lesson to learn.
Mm.
Cliche as hell, but important to remind ourselves of that.
Um, I appreciate that share, man. Do you feel complete in our chat about that?
I do. I do. I feel like this wraps this episode up. Nice. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. No, that was a great question, man. And I definitely take a lot from what you just shared there. So thank you. And I hope our viewers also do as well. And for those who have been loyal to the soil for the first 10 episodes, we understand that the future is going to be different than what you've experienced so far. But what we can tell you is that we've packed it with a whole lot of intention. We're shifting things for
Mhm.
what we believe will be the better, so that you can actually connect with this material more. You can actually see more of what we're talking about, see more of yourself in these conversations, because that's
Mhm.
ultimately what this is. This is our best way that we can connect the way we would if we happen to be in person. I imagine this being a
Mhm.
fireside chat, VJ. So
Mhm.
that's very much the vibe that I think we try and create here. And we hope that
Mhm.
others want to sit around our virtual fireplace, as we do this and continue on this journey. So before we do wrap, VJ, did you want to just share with everyone, if they're looking to get in touch with you, why might they want to do that? What's the value of working with you? Maybe a bit about the VJ difference, and maybe any of the upcoming stuff that you have, just in case they are interested in seeking out some new spaces for themselves.
Yeah, sure thing. Something that's always driven me, Joshua, and everybody listening is the marriage between science and spirituality. I come from an engineering background, and my brain's always worked in that sort of science, prove it to me kind of way, until experience life, and understand that there's such a bigger thing going on, much more than our brains can actually understand. So I'm passionate about trying my level best to explain esoteric spiritual jargon, let's call it, in ways that maybe resonate with people on a pragmatic level. So whatever I kind of do, whether it's my workshops that I offer Dharma talks online and in person. I try and do that. Speaking of Dharma talks, the retreat that you and I met at, Joshua, Heart Medicine Journey, that's Dharma talks are included in that 1 week retreat in Guatemala. So you can learn about that Heart Medicine Journey. It's happening in March of 2026. And I'm also very passionate about our Kirtan band. We have a little band in Toronto, in Ontario, and we're really, really taking it to the next level. And if you are in Ontario, please join us. And we're also going to start looking at a live broadcast element to it all. We just reformed our brand name, which I won't mention right now, but we're really excited about the new brand. But stay tuned for future episodes to learn more about that as well. What about you, Josh? The
Awesome.
Joshua difference.
I appreciate that, man. Before I share mine, what's the best way for folks to connect with you? Is that through a website or an Instagram handle, or what platform do you prefer? What's the best way for them to get in touch?
The best way is my Instagram handle. It's Let's Meet at Balasana. Balasana is child's pose in Sanskrit. And you know how the teacher at a yoga class always says, let's meet at child's pose. I personally love being a child, and I love child's pose. And I just as a bigger theme, I want us all to meet in child's pose. So
Love.
let's meet at Balasana is my Instagram.
Amazing. Amazing. And everyone, I do encourage you to check out VJ's page. He's always doing such interesting things. He did mention his engineering background, but he's such a diverse, dynamic individual with lots of interesting things that are really inviting for you to actually come and learn alongside him. So I do encourage that. And if you are looking to make an investment in 2026 in yourself, definitely recommend that Heart Medicine Journey Retreat. It to this day continues to pay dividends, and I believe until I go into the dirt once again, it will continue to do that. So I do highly recommend that experience for everyone.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. For those who are interested in perhaps working with me, something you can connect with me on is self-mastery consulting. So if you imagine basically a one-on-one, incredibly personalized, non-templated experience where just about everything is on the table. We can talk about entrepreneurial experience. So say, for example, you're a new entrepreneur, you're trying to navigate the waters. I've done it twice already. So, I come with experience, right? We can really talk about anything, whether that's communication in your relationship. We can talk fitness plans. We can talk about prepping yourself for corporate excellence and how you lead more mindfully. All of these things are on the table. It's really a very broad spectrum that's based off of my lived experience and several certifications, all that kind of stuff. So check that out. If you're looking to connect with tarot is something that I really enjoy. I started out as a hobby, and now it's something that I do offer as a tool to really help us strengthen our intuition, because connecting with our intuition and knowing how to tap into that is more important than ever. So I like to use that as a tool for us to really connect and open up conversations. The whole point of everything that I offer is I create a safe space for you to actually communicate. I know, especially as men, sometimes we don't want to just go to traditional settings. And here you are. You have someone who's going to take a holistic approach, who's had that real world experience of several different facets. And that way I can support you in that sense. So if you are interested in exploring more of that, my handle on Instagram as well as on YouTube is the Self Mastery Consultant. You can find me, Joshua Jaipal, on Facebook as well as LinkedIn. All of my content, I try and share it across there. So definitely connect. If you're not even sure if we might be the right fit, still send me a message and we'll figure it out. Because between my network and all the networks that I have access to, I'm sure we can find you someone who will feel very aligned to support you in your goals.
One of the things I love about you, Joshua, is you really listen. You really hold space for the others, the person that's sitting across from you. And I really recommend everybody to work with you. Honestly, I'm quite a bit older than you are, but you teach me every single time we speak, and I want that for everybody. So yeah, check him out.
Received. Thank you, bro. Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I think that brings us to the end of episode 11. Thank you so much to everyone who has supported us on this journey. It's been fantastic for us. We hope you've gotten a whole ton out of it as well. We'd love your feedback, whether that's in the comments, some messages to us, anything like that. We want to hear what you thought about it, what you loved, what you learned, maybe some stuff that you want to hear in upcoming episodes. All of it's open. We really want this to be a safe space for all to explore, learn, empower themselves, and try something different. Any closing words from you, VJ, for our folks before we head off for today?
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and please share your thoughts. That's really, really important, your questions and thoughts. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Until next time, everyone.